This is the second video in the series that we're doing on inventory in QuickBooks. We're going to look at the purchasing function of inventory in this video. Some of these steps are optional, some are not. We'll kind of go through that as we cover those steps, and you can decide which ones are going to be useful to you. We're going to start with purchase order. That would be the first step in purchasing inventory. It is an optional step. You don't have to use purchase orders if you don't want to. If you do, it is what we call a non-posting transaction. That is, you can create as many as you want, you can change them, you can delete them. Doesn't make any difference to your accounting numbers. Your financial reports won't change, regardless of what you might do with purchase orders. They're just for information only. Handy for organizations or businesses where there might be more than one person in QuickBooks. So Perry Windows and Doors, that's the vendor where we buy the brass hinges, which is the item that we've been kind of using in the sample file here to go through these processes. I'm going to leave the date and the PO number the same as the default. Brass hinges, let's buy 50 of those, and we're expecting to pay $3.25 for each hinge. So that's a purchase order for $162.50. So I will save that. Of course, if I was going to email that to the vendor or I could print it and mail it, whatever I wanted to do, I could do those things. But for the sake of our video, I just wanted to get that purchase order created and saved. Now, when we receive the brass hinges, there are a couple of different directions we can go. There's this icon here on the home page that says receive inventory, and it gives me a couple of choices: receive inventory with bill, receive inventory without bill. There's an extra step if I receive the inventory without bill. So in order to cover everything, that's the option I'm going to take. Not everyone will do that. The thought behind receiving inventory without a bill is someone working in my company receives the inventory, and we want them to create the transaction in QuickBooks. It's available to sell right now, even though they may only have a packing list, so they may not really know how much we paid for it. The final invoice from the vendor we don't have yet. Maybe there's going to be freight added. We don't know that either. So let's choose that. And I'll point out the shortcut later if you can use the shortcut. All right, so I'm going to put the vendor name in here on this what's called item receipt, Perry Windows and Doors. And when I go to leave that field, QuickBooks pops up this message: hey, there's purchase orders for this vendor. Do you want to use one of those? Well, yes, we do, because we have that open purchase order that we just created. So I'm going to select yes. When I do, I get this message. There's two different purchase orders for Perry Windows and Doors. This is the one that we just created. So I'll select that one, say OK. Now let's say we did not get all 50. Okay, let's say we only got 30. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in whatever number is on their document to us, whether it's probably a packing list. And then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say, okay, we only got 30 of these. We didn't get 50. All right. There we go. And they did come in at 325. I could change that. Well, although actually I could not have a number in there at all, since this is an item receipt. I may not know how much that cost is. That came over from the purchase order. I can leave that. I can change that. I'm just going to leave it the way it is for now. But there's my item receipt. So I'm going to save and close that. Now, what that does, the reason that has value is we don't have an invoice from the vendor yet, but somebody's been able to enter the inventory that came in as a item receipt, which means it's in the system and it's ready to sell. I have 30 more of those items. My customers don't have to wait until the invoice gets mailed from the vendor, or something like that. It avoids those kinds of delays. The thing you need to be careful of is you cannot pay an item receipt, because the whole purpose of that document is that it is not complete. If I go into pay bills and say, well, I want to pay Perry Windows and Doors for that 30 brass hinge order that we got, if I say, where are the bills for Perry Windows and Doors? Well, there aren't any, because the item receipt is not a bill. You cannot pay it. Another area where people get into a little bit of trouble, it's in stock. The items are there, but the bill has not been created. That transaction has not been completed. And so if someone doesn't understand that, then they come along later to put the bill into QuickBooks, and they start the process all over again, and they just receive another 30 brass hinges. So they duplicate that. The item receipt exists in QuickBooks and the bill receipt exists in QuickBooks. Both are bringing in 30 brass hinges. That's a total of 60, but we only got 30. Okay, common mistake. Try not to make that one. All right. So what happens is when I'm using the item receipt like that, when the bill comes in, the next step is here. So QuickBooks tries to use this homepage here with these arrows to show me how the workflow should go. So enter bills against inventory. What vendor do I want? Well, I want Perry Windows and Doors. Well, there's one item receipt there for Perry Windows and Doors. I'll select that. Okay. There's the bill. If I needed to add something, I could. Maybe there's a freight charge or something like that I want to add. Delivery charges. See, a cost of $15. And so my total bill is actually more than just what the item receipt was. This completes the bill. Let me recalculate that to add that 15 to the 97.15. You see that number change right there. Now I can save that. Now if I go to Pay Bills and ask QuickBooks to show me the bills for Perry Windows and Doors, it's there. It's there at the $112.50. So that's the purpose of the item receipt. If you don't need that step, if you don't need an item receipt, and you might not, smaller organizations maybe don't want that, then don't add the complication. Receive the inventory with the bill. See, and instead of an item receipt form, you get a bill form. You just skip the item receipt altogether. You go right to the bill. And same process, you could put the vendor name in here, Perry Windows and Doors. Oh, you have open POs. Well, guess what? There it is, the PO that we created earlier. It's still open because remember, on the purchase order, we asked for 50, but we only got 30 on that item receipt. So there's still 20 available to come in. So I did that so I could show you, you're still going to get that same window. You're still going to get the opportunity to create the bill against the purchase order, but you skip that item receipt altogether. Okay, I'm not going to complete the bill. Hopefully you get that concept. So item receipt if you need it. If not, just go straight to receive inventory with the bill. One other thing I just want to mention real quickly here is that you can skip the creating of a bill altogether. The thing that makes inventory work is using the items. So this is a check form. I can create a check to a vendor, but while we usually use the expense tabs on checks, we can use the items tab, and I can create my brass hinge item right here. Purchase orders do not work with checks. I cannot receive items against a purchase order if I'm writing a check. So this would be a simple transaction. I'm buying 5 brass hinges, and it's one step. That's it, the creation of the check. But I did want to point that out, that you do have the option of using the items tab on the check to receive inventory. By far, most people are using this procedure up here. they're utilizing accounts payable along with that process. And whether or not they use purchase orders, if you skip the purchase order, you can still come right here and receive inventory with bill. So in the simple method, that would be the starting point, rather than purchase order and receive without bill and then receive the bill and so forth. Hope all that makes sense. You have several options there. Try to fit the workflow of different people. Everybody seems to do it just a little bit different. Hope that's helpful. The next video, we're going to cover the sales of inventory. And so hope to see you then. Thanks for watching.